on us. But it's great to have you guys here with me today. And today we are on chapter 19, section 4, the obstacles to peace. I'm really looking forward to this because there's a lot going on in my life, and I'm sure this will help me as well. So I'll go ahead and read, and then we will discuss after the reading. The obstacles to peace. As peace extends from deep inside yourself to embrace all the sonship and give it rest, it will encounter many obstacles. Some of them you will try to impose. Others will seem to arise from elsewhere, from your brothers, and from various aspects of the world outside. Yet peace will gently cover them, extending past completely unencumbered. The extension of the Holy Spirit's purpose from your relationship to others to bring them gently in is the way in which He will bring means and goal in line. The peace He lay deep within you and your brother will quietly extend to every aspect of your life, surrounding you and your brother with glowing happiness and the calm awareness of complete protection. And you will carry its message of love and safety and freedom to everyone who draws nigh unto your temple, where healing waits for him. You will not wait to give him this, for you will call to him and he will answer you, recognizing in your call the call for God. And you will draw him in and give him rest as it was given you. All this will you do. Yet the peace that already lies deeply within must first expand and flow across the obstacles you placed before it. This will you do, for nothing undertaken with the Holy Spirit remains unfinished. You can indeed be sure of nothing you see outside you, but of this you can be sure. The Holy Spirit asks that you offer him a resting place where you will rest in him. He answered you and entered your relationship. Would you not now return his graciousness and enter into a relationship with him? For it is he who offered your relationship the gift of holiness, without which it would have been forever impossible to appreciate your brother. The gratitude you owe to him, he asks but that you receive for him. And when you look with gentle graciousness upon your brother, you are beholding him, for you are looking where he is and not apart from him. You cannot see the Holy Spirit, but you can see your brothers truly, and the light in them will show you all that you need to see. When the peace in you has been extended to encompass everyone, the Holy Spirit's function here will be accomplished. What need is there for seeing then? When God has taken the last step himself, the Holy Spirit will gather all the thanks and gratitude that you have offered him and lay them gently before his Creator in the name of his most holy Son. And the Father will accept them in his name. What need is there of seeing in the presence of his gratitude? All right, so that was we got the ball set up on the tee and we're ready to hit it. I think this makes sense, right? We just have to see Christ in all our brothers in everything we do and bring that peace and extend that peace and offer the Holy Spirit and actually be with the Holy Spirit, right?
So there is a good of seeing.
Yes.
It's funny the way you ask the question at the end. So what is the good of seeing? It says.
What need is there of seeing in the presence of his gratitude?
I should put it on my screen so I quote it right when I do. Thank you. Is that background noise still there?
Yes. It almost sounds like the Morse code now. It's going bzz, 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 bzz. All right, any questions or shall I continue? All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue. I see a lot of you guys are frozen, so I'm hoping that it's not my screen that has a problem, because I see Eric moving, but everybody else seems to be a little frozen.
I'm frozen.
Kind of choppy, but hopefully you guys are hearing me okay.
I'm hearing you
All right.
okay.
Okay, good.
But
Thank
you know,
you.
last week I had the problem. I've been getting frozen.
Speaking of technology, okay, I'm going to go ahead and read the next section, which is really long. So bear with me and maybe take notes on things you want to ask questions about so you don't forget them. Okay. Let's go to the next one. The first obstacle, the desire to get rid of it. The first obstacle that peace must flow across is your desire to get rid of it, for it cannot extend unless you keep it. You are the center from which it radiates outward to call the others in. You are its home, its tranquil dwelling place from which it gently reaches out, but never leaving you. If you would make it homeless, how can it abide within the Son of God? If it would spread across the whole creation, it must begin with you, and from you reach to everyone who calls and bring him rest by joining you. Why would you want peace homeless? What do you think that it must dispossess to dwell with you? What seems to be the cost you are so unwilling to pay? The little barrier of sand still stands between you and your brother. Would you reinforce it now? You're not asked to let it go for yourself alone. Christ asks it of you for himself. He would bring peace to everyone. And how can he do this except through you? Would you let a little bank of sand, a wall of dust, a tiny seeming barrier stand between your brothers and salvation? And yet this little remnant of attack you cherish still against your brother is the first obstacle the peace in you encounters in its going forth. This little wall of hatred would still oppose the will of God and keep it limited. The Holy Spirit's purpose rests in peace within you, yet you are still unwilling to let it join you wholly. You still oppose the will of God just by a little, and that little is a limit you would place upon the whole. God's will is one, not many. It has no opposition, for there is none beside it. What you would still contain behind your little barrier and keep separate from your brother seems mightier than the universe, for it would hold back the universe and its creator. This little wall would hide the purpose of heaven and keep it from heaven. Would you thrust salvation away from the giver of salvation? For such have you become. Peace could no more depart from you than from God. Fear not this little obstacle. It cannot contain the will of God. Peace will flow across it and join you without hindrance. Salvation cannot be withheld from you. It is your purpose. You cannot choose apart from this. You have no purpose apart from your brother, nor apart from the one you asked the Holy Spirit to share with you. The little wall will fall away so quietly beneath the wings of peace, for peace will send its messengers from you to all the world, and barriers will fall away before their coming as easily as those that you interpose will be surmounted. To overcome the world is no more difficult than to surmount your little wall. For in the miracle of your holy relationship, without this barrier, is every miracle contained. There is no order of difficulty in miracles, for they are all the same. Each is a gentle winning over from the appeal of guilt to the appeal of love. How can this fail to be accomplished wherever it is undertaken? Guilt can raise no real barriers against it, and all that seems to stand between you and your brother must fall away because of the appeal you answered. From you who answered, he who answered you would call. His home is in your holy relationship. Do not attempt to stand between him and his holy purpose, for it is yours. But let him quietly extend the miracle of your relationship to everyone contained in it as it was given. There is a hush in heaven, a happy expectancy, a little pause of gladness in acknowledgement of the journey's end. For heaven knows you well, as you know heaven. No illusions stand between you and your brother now. Look not upon the little wall of shadows. The sun has risen over it. How can a shadow keep you from the sun? No more can you be kept by shadows from the light in which illusions end. Every miracle is but the end of an illusion. Such was the journey. Such is its ending. And in the goal of truth, which you accepted, must all illusions end. The little insane wish to get rid of him whom you invited in and push him out must produce conflict. As you look upon the world, this little wish, uprooted and floating aimlessly, can land and settle briefly upon anything, for it has no purpose now. Before the Holy Spirit entered to abide with you, it seemed to have a mighty purpose, the fixed and unchangeable dedication to sin and its results. Now it is aimless, wandering pointlessly, causing no more than tiny interruptions in love's appeal. This feather of a wish, this tiny illusion, this microscopic remnant of the belief in sin is all that remains of what once seemed to be the world. It is no longer an unrelenting barrier to peace. Its pointless wandering makes its results appear to be more erratic and unpredictable than before. Yet, what could be more unstable than a tightly organized delusional system? Its seeming stability is its pervasive weakness, which extends to everything. The variability the little remnant induces merely indicates its limited results. How mighty can a little feather be before the great wings of truth? Can it oppose an eagle's flight or hinder the advance of summer? Can it interfere with the effects of summer's sun upon a garden covered by the snow? See but how easily this little wisp is lifted up and carried away, never to return, and part with it in gladness, not regret. For it is nothing in itself and stood for nothing when you had greater faith in its protection. Would you not rather greet the summer sun than fix your gaze upon a disappearing snowflake and shiver in remembrance of the winter's cold? Okay. Any thoughts about this?
I like the phrase tightly organized disillusional system. Reminds me of the government.
Right? I know. Like everything.
Yeah, it's like life. It's interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, it is interesting when you look at it from this perspective of the Holy Spirit, right? Like it could be so simple if we could just remember that our only purpose is to share this peace within us. You know, it's not to hold grievances, and it's not to hold on to these little things that pop up in all of these reactions and interactions, whether it's with our spouse or our neighbors or the subcontractors that are supposed to be working on our houses. You know, it can be frustrating, but
Or the justices that are supposed to be just.
right. You know, I mean, I had a situation come up today where there was someone who was supposed to put gutters on my house, and we had a conversation 2 months ago, and he was giving me some dates of when he could do it. And I kind of gave a thumbs up on like, yeah, they looked like good dates. And then I asked him if he could give me another quote to just do like part of my house and not the sides. And he said he was too busy to be able to give me any other quotes. So I was like, okay. So I went on and got quotes from other contractors. Well, he reached out to me this morning and he said, okay, I'm ready to do your house today. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you gave me a thumbs up on the date I gave you. I said, that was 2 months ago. And I asked you to give me another quote and you didn't give me another quote. So I figured you weren't interested in my job anymore. And he said, well, the thumbs up was a binding contractual agreement. And I have a 10% charge for people who break my contracts. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? So anyways, that's just shows you one example of how these things can escalate, right? And so that's how my day started today, with this, very, very, insane text conversation about this person who thought we had a contractual agreement, and it was definitely a miscommunication. But, you just have to ask the Holy Spirit to intervene, right? And just be like, okay, I could see peace instead of this. I can be love, and just, try to move forward from that perspective. But little things like this pop up all day long, every day, right? Isn't this what happens in our world of illusion with people and miscommunication and misinterpreting? And, people think one thing and you think something else, and try to do your best to move forward and make good communications and choose peace and be love. But things happen, right? Things happen, and you have to kind of figure it out as you go and learn how to just choose love and be love, and remember that your only function is peace, and however that can be peaceful.
I'd like to know how a thumbs up means that you're bound to a contract.
In a text message, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Boy, I have to be careful when I send that thumbs up now.
Yeah, watch your watch when you like things. If you do a thumbs up, you could be in trouble, apparently.
I mean, it just means I like what you said. It doesn't mean, I don't think it means,
right.
Yeah, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that sounds good. That could be a good date. And, I even followed up with that. Well, I have to get the HOA approval still. So, it's just interesting. But that's just one example, right? Of thousands of things that happen every day, all day.
Oh, yeah.
And you can hold on to that. I was right, you were wrong. But in the end, does it really matter? I mean, the only thing that really matters is I have to see my brother. I have to see the Christ in my brother, right? And see that whole relationship lovingly. And, it doesn't mean you have to do what they say you have to do. It just means you have to choose peace instead of this.
It gets less specific after that.
Right.
So that's part of the solution, to be less specific about it, more general about it. But in fact, there's that little bit of tension there, isn't there, about what's he going to do next? So there's an uncertain future there. So, God's certainty, I don't know, this guy doesn't seem to be working with God's certainty. He's working with his own or whatever, but analyzing and evaluating doesn't really seem to help a lot.
Sure, exactly. So what are you left with? You're just left with choosing peace and choosing love, and realizing it's going to land, right? It's going to land on things, which is what we just read. It's like a feather, right? It can be an annoyance, but it'll change and move. Like this came out of the blue, out of nowhere this morning. I was definitely not expecting this text message, right? So this was a conversation I was having 2 months ago with this person. It was the first I've heard from this person in 2 months. So it is like a feather, and it lands on things, and it's like, ooh, let's see if we can disturb the peace today. Let's see if that'll work, right? And it's just a test, right? If we could just be in that place of peace and realize this is just part of the illusion. It's just another little feather floating by, landing, seeing if it can get my attention, seeing if it can ruffle my feathers, right? And it did. It ruffled my feathers for sure this morning. But you just have to remember to trust the Holy Spirit and go back to that place of peace and love, and Be the most loving you can.
How does it feel when you do that?
To which part? To trust and be the most loving I can?
Yeah.
It feels good, when you remember that, because otherwise this could be sitting with me and agitating me for the rest of the day, right? But it also means setting boundaries, setting healthy boundaries. And I had to set healthy boundaries with this person and let him know that it was not a contract and that I would not be working with him, and I did that in the most loving way I could.
Yeah. I know that's the key, to be able to say it in a calm way without inflections.
Right.
Because sometimes, for me, I have to work hard at not saying anything initially because I know it's not going to come out good.
Yes.
And you definitely don't want that.
Exactly. And that's at that moment where we forget to ask the Holy Spirit for help, right? Because our ego gets involved and it wants to attack. I've been attacked. I'm going to counterattack.
Yep.
Right. So we have to let go, let God, and just quiet our mind for a minute. Like, okay, I know that I could see peace instead of this. And then allow the answer to come, because our ego mind is not going to come up with the right answer.
No, not at all.
Not at all. It's already aligned with fear, and anything that comes out of my mouth at that point is not going to be helpful.
Right.
I have a real hard time because sarcasm is my primary language.
Lately, I've been watching with David R. Hawkins and talking about letting go and seeing how he has so many different. He starts out in the book. He says, you can do all these things. He starts talking about all the different kinds of things you can do to improve your situation and your spiritual awareness. And he lists I don't know how many things, 100 and something. I don't know. It just goes on and on and on. All the different things that you could do to try and elevate yourself spiritually. And that didn't really help me very much. But I looked at the fact of, if I really want to return to peace, then I really have to be, during the course of my day, aware that that's what I want to do. Because those things, like you say, do just seem to just crop up out of nowhere.
Right.
Suddenly somebody has a dilemma. It seems for you that it's a dilemma. For them, it's not, or whatever. And there's this negotiation that has to occur. And the negotiation, it has a legitimate place in terms of how we live, doesn't it?
Sure.
So we do have to learn how to deal with it in a courteous manner, kindly if possible, but to see also, though, what's the best good here?
Right.
I'm trying to not adjust to truth. How do I not adjust to truth? And yet there's a dilemma here for me to what do I do?
Right.
Jesus said in chapter 3, I think it is, he said, make your choices with me. And then he gave us many examples of it as we go through the course. Let him be with you while you make the choice.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, sometimes for me, what I have to do is, if I can step away from the situation, I'll do that. For me, and because I know, and at least I'm able to catch myself before I became aware of what was going on with the stuff that I read and all of that. I would just jump in the moment, and of course, never had terrible results. And then later, things will come to me of which I could have said. So now, what I do is, if I can step away from the situation, I do, just to diffuse that initial energy that comes in, that it's like a heat rush, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
exactly.
155.
Yeah. And just know that there's something better that could be said, and it will come. Like you said, just place it in God's hand, whatever, the energy, the power, and things do work out that way. It's that whole thing with the slap in the face. I know we're still talking about that. That was a bad reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was, and of course, and even the comedian himself must have felt, because that's happened. I've been in situations like that where I try to say something funny and goes over like a lead bomb.
Yeah.
And I get some bad reaction, and then you just have to don't react to it. Just nothing. Say nothing.
Yeah. And if you look at paragraph 3, it says the Holy Spirit's purpose rests in peace within you. So the Holy Spirit the Holy Spirit's purpose rests in me, in the peace that's in me, right? But I'm unwilling to let it join with me wholly. And I still oppose the will of God just a little, right? So if your whole purpose isn't aligned with the Holy Spirit in offering peace and love to your brother, then you're opposing it, right? So it's like it's all or nothing. A Course in Miracles says you can't just be partially offering love and then partially offering fear, right? You're either all on board or you're not on board.
And we're really not all on board. We really just have this limitation always. I mean, duality is just that. That's what that is. There's always another side to everything. There's no one single purpose. So living in the truth is not as easy as it seems.
Right.
It is a little bit of work. The mind will integrate whatever comes about. It will just start to integrate it. It wants to move away from pain, but in fact, its method for doing so sometimes often leads into pain instead.
Right. And I think that's where the power of the lessons come in, right? And also all of this inner work that we talk about, and letting go of our story and doing the shadow work of our inner child and trying to heal all of those things that happened with our early conditioning. I think that's all part of it, which, maybe is just making it more complicated. The Holy Spirit or the Course in Miracles says it's simple, but I think that there's definitely the other work that is there and needs to be done, because it's, like you said, Eric, it's not easy to just turn on the peace when you're in that moment of, it's practice, and not letting it trigger that 5-year-old child that still feels abandoned or still feels unworthy or still feels not good enough or not smart enough, right? So it's all these triggers that we develop during our domestication experience that we need to let go of and heal so that we can be healthy and whole and be able to embody this peace that we're talking about.
So that takes a lot of that observer effort to see. I want to really stay with my inner purpose. I really want to stay with not adjusting to truth. I really want to be able to step back in my mind from what's upsetting or difficult or confusing, chaos, contradictions, or whatever, and then let Spirit lead the way. So that there's a real process to it, but it does take practice, that's for sure.
Sure, for sure. That's why the lessons, like I said before, are so important. All right, shall we continue, or do we still want to discuss? Good to go? Okay. The attraction of guilt. The attraction of guilt produces fear of love, for love would never look on guilt at all. It is the nature of love to look upon only the truth, for there it sees itself, with which it would unite in holy union and completion. As love must look past fear, so must fear see love not. For love contains the end of guilt as surely as fear depends on it. Love is attracted only to love. Overlooking guilt completely, it sees no fear. Being wholly without attack, it could not be afraid. Fear is attracted to what love sees not, and each believes that what the other looks upon does not exist. Fear looks on guilt with just the same devotion that love looks on itself, and each has messengers which it sends forth and which return to it with messages written in the language in which their going forth was asked. Love's messengers are gently sent and return with messages of love and gentleness. The messengers of fear are harshly ordered to seek out guilt and cherish every scrap of evil and of sin that they can find, losing none of them on pain of death and laying them respectfully before their Lord and Master. Perception cannot obey two masters, each asking for messages of different things in different languages. What fear would feed upon, love overlooks. What fear demands, love cannot even see. The fierce attraction that guilt holds for fear is wholly absent from love's gentle perception. What love would look upon is meaningless to fear and quite invisible. Relationships in this world are the result of how the world is seen. And this depends on which emotion was called on to send its messengers to look upon it and return with word of what they saw. Fear's messengers are trained through terror, and they tremble when their master calls on them to serve him. For fear is merciless, even to its friends. Its messengers steal guiltily away in hungry search of guilt, for they are kept cold and starving and made very vicious by their master, who allows them to feast only upon what they return to him. No little shred of guilt escapes their hungry eyes, and in their savage search for sin, they pounce on any living thing they see and carry it screaming to their master to be devoured. Send not these savage messengers into the world to feast upon it and to prey upon reality, for they will bring you word of bones and skin and flesh. They have been taught to seek for the corruptible and to return with gorges filled with things decayed and rotted. To them, such things are beautiful because they seem to allay their savage pangs of hunger, for they are frantic with the pain of fear and would avert the punishment of him who sends them forth by offering him what they hold dear. The Holy Spirit has given you love's messengers to send instead of those you trained through fear. They are as eager to return to you what they hold dear as are the others. If you send them forth, they will see only the blameless and the beautiful and the gentle and the kind. They will be as careful to let no little act of charity, no tiny expression of forgiveness, no little breath of love escape their notice. And they will return with all the happy things they found to share them lovingly with you. Be not afraid of them. They offer you salvation. Theirs are the messages of safety, for they see the world as kind. If you send forth only the messengers the Holy Spirit gives you, wanting no messages but theirs, you will see fear no more. The world will be transformed before your sight, cleansed of all guilt and softly brushed with a beauty. The world contains no fear that you laid not upon it, and none you cannot ask love's messengers to remove from it and see it still. The Holy Spirit has given you his messengers to send to your brother and return to you with what love sees. They have been given to replace the hungry dogs of fear you sent instead, and they go forth to signify the end of fear. Love, too, would set a feast before you on a table covered with a spotless cloth, set in a quiet garden where no sound but singing and a softly joyous whispering is ever heard. This is a feast that honors your holy relationship and at which everyone is welcomed as an honored guest. And in a holy instant, grace is said by everyone together as they join in gentleness before the table of communion. And I will join you there as long ago I promised and promise still. For in your new relationship am I made welcome, and where I am made welcome, there I am. I am made welcome in the state of grace, which means you have at last forgiven me, for I became the symbol of your sin, and so I had to die instead of you. To the ego, sin means death, and so at one moment is achieved through murder. Salvation is looked upon as a way by which the Son of God was killed instead of you. Yet would I offer you my body, you whom I love, knowing its littleness? Or would I teach that bodies cannot keep us apart? Mine was of no greater value than yours. No better means for communication of salvation, but not its source. No one can die for anyone, and death does not atone for sin. But you can live to show it is not real. The body does appear to be the symbol of sin while you believe that it can get you what you want. While you believe that it can give you pleasure, you will also believe that it can bring you pain. To think you could be satisfied and happy with so little is to hurt yourself and to limit the happiness that you would have calls upon pain to fill your meager store and make your life complete. This is completion as the ego sees it. For guilt creeps in where happiness has been removed and substitutes for it. Communion is another kind of completion, which goes beyond guilt because it goes beyond the body. And that was really good. You know, it's all about not believing that you're a body and realizing that you're so much greater than a body.
In chapter 25, it talks about there's another maker of the world, the simultaneous corrector of the mad belief that anything could be established and maintained without some link that kept it still within the laws of God. And I bring that up for like many reasons, but it's like try to keep that out in front of me instead of like that I'm leading the way of that. I'm very involved in advocacy about the environment and politics and so on like that, and it's a difficult job sometimes. I mean, it's not my job, it's just my hobby, but it's a difficult thing to do sometimes because there's so many different controversies and so many different polarities involved, and you know, it's not just two sides, it's many sides involved in every different issue that comes up at a national level or state level or even in the community. But a parked car across the street that's been there for 14 years or whatever, there's something always going on. The people have, you know, some issue about it, and to them it's very important, and that's sometimes difficult to keep in mind. It's very important to this person. So what I'm trying to make important to me, or what is important to me, is two different things. When I'm allowing the maker of the universe that is the undoing of what's important to me, so I see only what's important to all, then in fact I'm on my way to being able to at least deal with the fact that we may not agree on anything, but still I can be courteous at least anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Agree to disagree, right?
Sometimes.
Anybody else have anything they want to talk about with what we just read? I think it is so interesting, you know, when you're trying to justify something, right? You send out all of your messengers, like, show me that I'm right and this person's wrong, you know, and that's where you're calling upon fear, and they bring you back. I love the description, the decayed and decrepit, you know, whatever, you know, they bring you back all of these horrors, and so you can devour them and prove that you're right. You know, I'm right, you're wrong because of this, and this, and then you send out fear's messenger to bring you back the proof that you're right and they're wrong. And it's just so interesting. Whereas if you would just, you know, be at that place of love and that place of peace and send those messengers out in alignment with love and the Holy Spirit, then you bring back all of the loving things that you send out. But it certainly is a practice, and it certainly is a challenge, right? And we certainly have a lot
I grew up in, you know, so my parents never taught me that. You know, I don't know if anybody else's parents ever taught them that. But, you know, there begins the problem in my household, for example, between my mother and father, or between my father and one of the children, or whatever. There was some constant thing going on. Dinner time at my table was, you know, there was 7 of us sitting around the table. One or two of us too small to do anything about it. But there was always some little controversy going on. My father would be talking to my sister, and suddenly she'd do her little thing, and he'd just get, how dare she do that to me again? And he had his stick, and he had all these crazy things that were going on in the household, And yet I had good parents. They were kind and joyous and loving parents, and yet they were crazy sometimes. So was I, and so so are these people that I see also. Like Tommy, I mean, I'm not strongly against people that are Republicans, so don't take it wrong. If you are a Republican, I'm not strongly against Republicans. But people like Tommy Lauren and Ben Shapiro take only just that one side. And then when I watch the Democrats, they take only just that one side. And you know, Biden may or may not be a good president in somebody's opinion. Obama may not be a good president in somebody's opinion, and I can find a lot of fault with either one of them. Tremendous number of things about them, and so I do. But also, I need to keep in mind they're just people performing a job. They're not really. I mean, they're elected officials, but they're not really that important to the outcome of what the Holy Spirit's about. The Holy Spirit's about changing my inner life. So that isn't, I'm not looking for those crazy things. I'm not looking for those memories of failure. I'm not looking for that unkindness. And that example there is like sort of like baboons gone crazy. That one paragraph in there, it's like, oh my God. Ask for that, and that's what you'll see then. And I know that for experience too, because I started doing this a long time ago, and it was hard because I was looking for things. I was looking for, guilt and shame and corruption and so on and so forth. And there's lots of examples of it.
It's
Yeah,
true.
there's definitely something that is affecting the entire world, about people wanting to be right and making the other people be wrong. And it comes down basically to that, the way I see it. I mean, all over the news, now you got protests going on. Everything seems to become an issue of right against wrong, wrong against right, and nothing seems to get done in between. I think that it's going to come to a head, and I think there's going to be some sort of peace coming down somehow. And I don't know what that is, but that's what I keep. The
How we
mindset.
see it,
We have to change our own mindset. For that. Like anytime we see these controversies going on, I try to send it love and try to, that's how I deal with it. Because I've been involved myself getting into some kind of back and forth with some people, and it's not good. It's not healthy. And saying that we'll agree to disagree, I guess is a way out, but I think the way out is to just stay calm with everything that you're doing. Or anytime you get involved in one of those situations. I mean, I got a lot of Republican friends, or I think they were friends. I don't know anymore, right? And they voted for Obama, and they tell me that I was instrumental in getting them to do that. And I said, no, you did it. You voted for him, on your own. And I'm glad you did, and then my own son voted for Trump, and I didn't get on his case. I just said, I'm glad you voted. Boom, point, ended, right? And that's the whole thing. I mean, at least, my son had his own ability to do that. And for whatever reason, I'm in a Republican area. I'm outnumbered, but so what? And it's making me be more relaxed and calm when I have to deal with the issues at hand, that we discuss.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel really battered, man, but what the hell? It makes me feel stronger.
I think that's a good point too, Ernesto, is that, to keep an open mind so that you're not always judging someone's decision right or wrong, right?
Right.
Just to listen to the conversation, because people have their own reasons for doing what they do, whether it's voting for someone or joining an organization or going on a protest. So instead of labeling it right or wrong, if you can just be in that place of offering peace and love, then you are being a channel for the Holy Spirit and you are making a difference, right? Because there is only one, and your mind is the only mind that needs to be healed. And if you can do that effectively, then you will see the world differently. The world will change, but only that way, only through that vehicle. I remember when I was younger, very, very young, my father had died and my mother was an alcoholic, and my sister found out I was sexually active. So she dragged me down to Planned Parenthood, right? She was like, here, get on the pill or do something, So, I started going there, and that was my first visit to a gynecologist, and my first access to any type of healthcare. Like, I hadn't even been to a doctor before that, because my parents were so, my mother was in such a bad spot. Like, I didn't even really have a physician. So the woman that I saw there became my doctor, my only experience of a doctor. And I loved her. She was amazing. And it turns out she ended up being the midwife that brought both of my children into the world. But from that experience, I ended up joining Planned Parenthood and being on, the local board of directors of Planned Parenthood. And I remember we were having discussion, and they were talking about the right for lifers versus the, and someone in the table got very upset. There was going to be this thing and this protest, and I'm listening to all this. And I just brought up the thing. I go, well, can't we just all meet together? Because it sounds like we all want the same thing. We're just going about it differently. So maybe we should have a meeting where we're with them, and we can come up with a solution that helps everybody. And everybody at the table gave me this look like, oh, we would never meet with them. And I thought, well, that doesn't even make sense to me. Like, we both want the same thing, right? We both want healthy children born to families that are ready and able to take care of them. So why can't we just work together? And I remember that at that meeting, I was like, I don't think I can be on this board anymore. And it wasn't because I didn't believe in a lot of the things that they were doing. It's just that if they weren't going to be inclusive, then I felt like I didn't want to be part of that, being on one side versus the other,
Yeah.
So
Dialogue.
There are fighters though, and like they can't be eliminated. So there are fighters out there. They're not going to be eliminated.
Exactly. And you're not going to change people, but I guess my point is we all have our own choices. And so at that moment, I chose not to be aligned with that group anymore, because I didn't feel like I could be in a place of love if there was going to be so much animosity for the other side, so I didn't want to have to choose a side. I wanted to just choose love as my side. And nobody wanted to listen to that. So
It wasn't serving
the limitations of yourself against what it is that you're doing, against what it is that you'd prefer for there to be consensus. And it sets up that dilemma for you. So your choice is to be true to yourself.
Right, exactly.
And if that means withdraw from what it is that you're doing because you can't seem to stay true to yourself there, then it's best that you withdraw from it. Then that's true.
Exactly. But I mean, A Course in Miracles also says there is only one. And if we can be in that place of at-one-ment, right, where we see that Christ in all of our brothers, then yeah. And sometimes it takes like picking a side to realize, well, I don't want to be on the side anymore. I don't want to have that feeling of separation. I really want to have that feeling of at-one-ment. So it's interesting, right? All the choices we have, all the opportunities to choose love in all these different situations and scenarios. We have 10 more minutes. So I'm wondering, I think we can get through the next section. Let's go ahead and read one more section. The second obstacle, the belief the body is valuable for what it offers. We said that peace must first surmount the obstacle of your desire to get rid of it. Where the attraction of guilt holds sway, peace is not wanted. The second obstacle that peace must flow across, and closely related to the first, is the belief that the body is valuable for what it offers. For here is the attraction of guilt made manifest in the body and seen in it. This is the value that you think peace would rob you of. This is what you believe that it would dispossess and leave you homeless. And it is this for which you would deny a home to peace. the sacrifice you feel to be too great to make, too much to ask of you. Is it a sacrifice or a release? What has the body really given you that justifies your strange belief that in it lies salvation? Do you not see that this is the belief in death? Here is the focus of the perception of at-one-ment as murder. Here is the source of the idea that love is fear. The Holy Spirit's messengers are sent far beyond the body, calling the mind to join in Holy Communion and be at peace. Such is the message that I gave them for you. It is only the messengers of fear that see the body, for they look for what can suffer. Is it a sacrifice to be removed from what can suffer? The Holy Spirit does not demand you sacrifice the hope of the body's pleasure. It has no hope of pleasure, but neither can it bring you fear of pain. Pain is the only sacrifice the Holy Spirit asks, and this he would remove. Peace is extended from you only to the eternal, and it reaches out from the eternal in you. It flows across all else. The second obstacle is no more solid than the first, for you want neither to get rid of peace nor limit it. What are these obstacles that you would interpose between peace and its going forth, but barriers you place between your will and its accomplishment? You want communion, not the feast of fear. You want salvation, not the pain of guilt. And you want your Father, not a little mound of clay, to be your home. In your relationship, in your holy relationship, is your Father's Son. He has not lost communion with him, nor with himself. When you agreed to join your brother, you acknowledged this is so. This has no cost, but it has release from cost. You have paid very dearly for your illusions, and nothing you have paid for brought you peace. Are you not glad that heaven cannot be sacrificed, and sacrifice cannot be asked of you? There is no obstacle that you can place before our union, for in your holy relationship, I am there already. We will surmount all obstacles together, for we stand within the gates and not outside. How easily the gates are opened from within to let peace through to bless the tired world. Can it be difficult for us to walk past barriers together when you have joined the limitless? The end of guilt is in your hands to give. Would you stop now to look for guilt in your brother? Let me be to you the symbol of the end of guilt, and look upon your brother as you would look on me. Forgive me all the sins you think the Son of God committed, and in the light of your forgiveness, he will remember who he is and forget what never was. I ask for your forgiveness, for if you are guilty, so must I be. But if I surmounted guilt and overcame the world, you were with me. Would you see in me the symbol of guilt or the end of guilt, remembering that what I signify to you, you see within yourself? From your holy relationship, truth proclaims the truth, and love looks on itself. Salvation flows from deep within the home you offered to my Father and to me, and we are there together in the quiet communion in which the Father and the Son are joined. O come, ye faithful, to the holy union of the Father and the Son in you, and keep you not apart from what is offered you in gratitude for giving peace its home in heaven. Send forth to all the world the joyous message of the end of guilt, and all the world will answer. Think of your happiness as everyone offers you witness of the end of sin and shows you that its power is gone forever. Where can guilt be when the belief in sin is gone? And where is death when its great advocate is heard no more? Forgive me your illusions and release me from punishment for what I have not done. So will you learn the freedom that I taught by teaching freedom to your brother, and so releasing me. I am within your holy relationship. Yet you would imprison me behind the obstacles you raise to freedom and bar my way to you. Yet it is not possible to keep away one who is already there. And in him, it is possible that our communion, where we are joined already, will be the focus of the new perception that will bring light to all the world contained in you.
Mm.
Right. Well, that's giving up the belief that the body is valuable for what it offers. Peace is extended from you only to the eternal, and it reaches out from the eternal in you.
So you say, forgive me your illusions and release me from punishment for what I have not done. And somebody, one of your contractors says that to you or whatever, like, what goes in your mind then?
I'll be like, yeah, that's true. Let's have some pizza and fix all this problem. Come on over later. We'll get some pizza and water and beer and soda, whatever you drink, and we'll all get together and have a cleanup party.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, we have 2 more minutes. Anybody have anything they want to share about what we read so far today, the obstacles to peace? Has it helped? Has it shed a light, or is everybody more confused?
It's all course.
It's all the course, yeah.
Yeah.
So trying to choose love, to choose peace instead of this.
Love instead of fear.
Love instead of fear. Next week, we're going to read about the attraction of pain
Oh,
and the
that's
attraction of death. Bum, bum,
not very
bum.
attracted by either one of those.
We don't seem to be, right? But I think somewhere in there, the ego kind of works its way and tries to make it look like something we want.
It's all part of the magic of the world outside ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I was reading the Kahil Gurban book on pain.
Mm,
I want to see if I can find it now real quick here.
I
Because
bet that's good.
it is very good. Well, you know, sometimes when I'm writing cards, I try to pick something out that I think might be relevant
Right.
to me, and I'll write it down and send it into my cards, you know.
Right.
And so the funny thing is that I was reading through the Kahil Gurban book and I couldn't find anything, but I had read the pain part. Then I Googled, you know, quotable quotes, and boom, there it was, what I had read, but by itself. And it made more sense when I was able to just pick that one couple of lines.
Yeah.
And I think it's at the end. Let me see if I can quickly read this. Oh my
I
God.
just Googled it.
Uh-huh. You Googled it? So I think it's at the end.
And the
Where it talks
woman's
about,
saying, tell us of pain.
yeah, we're at the end it says something about pain is the avenue to understanding.
The
Something
pain
like
is,
that.
the pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding, even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so must you know pain. And could you keep your heart in wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would not seem less wondrous than your joy. And you would accept the seasons of your heart, even as you have always accepted the seasons that pass over your fields. And you would watch with serenity through the winters of your grief. Much of your pain is self-chosen. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. For his hand, though heavy and hard, is guided by the tender hand of the unseen. And the cup he brings, though it burn your lips has been fashioned of the clay which the potter has moistened with his own sacred tears. Interesting.
It was right at the beginning,
Yeah.
the line about it breaks through the shell
Right. Your
of
pain is the
understanding.
breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding.
Yep,
Yeah, that makes sense.
that was it. And it wasn't until I saw that by itself that that whole thing made sense to me.
Yeah, good point. I love that. All right, everyone. I will
Right.
see you next week. Hopefully you will be able to join, and we will learn about the attraction of pain. All right, thanks for joining, everyone. Have a great week. And
Thank you.
I will talk to you next week. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.